Picture this. 6 a.m., September 17th, 1714, Kensington Palace. The hall smells like iron, mildew, and the faint sweetness of decaying lilies left from last week's ceremony. Guards stand frozen, servants trembling. Someone is whispering, "She's still standing. My God, she's still standing." And here's the part your history teacher never told you. A queen can die sitting. A queen can die in her sleep. A queen can die screaming, bleeding, whispering, praying. But what happens when a queen dies? Still upright? What happens when a body refuses to fall? When tendons lock, ribs grind, and for 17 days she never once touches a bed? Stay with me, because we're already in the room. She's right there, rigid, breath shallow, skin like wax pulled too tight across bone. They say Queen Anne died peacefully. They say she passed away after a long illness. They say her final days were dignified. But the truth? The truth smells like rot, fear, and old secrets soaked into wooden floors. And here's the forbidden part. The part the palace tried to bury with her. She hadn't lain down for more than 2 weeks before she died. Not once. Not even to sleep. Not even when her spine compressed so brutally that her height shrank nearly 2 inches in less than a month. You can hear it if you listen carefully. The faint popping, the grinding, the body begging to collapse, the woman refusing. "Why won't she lie down?" a maid whispers. But that's the question nobody's allowed to ask. Not then. Not now. Not officially. Because tonight we're talking about the queen who died standing, and the 17 days without lying down that shook her kingdom and terrified the people closest to her. And trust me, by the time you finish this story, you'll understand why the most powerful woman in Britain chose to remain upright even as her body crumbled from the inside. Why doctors lied. Why records were burned. Why her final hours were sealed behind oak doors for more than 300 years. And what they found, when they finally tried to move her, is something so disturbing, so physically impossible, that it was never meant to see daylight again. This is the story they buried. Until now, stay close. Don't look away. Because what comes next changes everything. Picture the room again. Same light, same smell, same unbearable stillness. It's September 17th, 1714, and Queen Anne is standing, or something close to standing, in a twisted, impossible posture. Her spine is arched like a bent bow, her breathing so shallow you only notice it when the candle flame trembles each time she exhales. A physician steps closer. His shoes scrape the stone floor. He whispers, "Your Majesty, please sit." But she doesn't. Can't. Won't. Her fingers are gripping the carved wooden arm of the chair beside her, but she refuses to lower herself onto it. Her nails are purple, her knuckles swollen. Her hand trembles like there's a storm trapped inside her bones. "She hasn't slept," a servant mutters. 17 days, another replies. "But why won't she lie down?" No one answers. Because nobody dares. Stay with me. Watch her face. Her eyelids flutter not from sleep, but from the effort it takes to stay conscious. Her lips are cracked. Her tongue is dry. Even swallowing is a battle. There's sweat on her temples, but it's cold sweat. That metallic, sour smell that clings to dying skin. Her gown is loose on one side, tight on the other, because her body has begun to swell unevenly from standing this long. Her ankles look like thick, bruised ropes. Her feet press into the floor with such pressure that you can almost hear the joints straining. She tries to breathe. Short, sharp. A gasp more than a breath. "She can't go on like this," a lady-in-waiting whispers. But here's what they're not saying. No one is allowed to move her. Not the physicians, not the guards, not the servants, not even her closest companion. Because the last time someone tried, 11 days ago, she screamed. A sound so deep, so guttural, that they said it didn't even sound human. A sound that echoed through the palace halls like a wounded animal being dragged toward its final hour. Since then, no one has touched her. Every few minutes, her knees buckle just a little. A tiny collapse, a small surrender. But she forces herself upright again, trembling violently as if the floor itself were poison she cannot touch. What is she afraid of? What does she think will happen if she lies down? Questions everywhere, answers nowhere. The palace has become a place of whispers. Whispers that slip under doors, crawl along marble floors, and cling to walls thick with old secrets. Is it madness? Is it guilt? Is it punishment? Is it something else? A physician touches her wrist gently, just enough to feel a pulse. Her skin is ice. her heartbeat faint and irregular, like a drum that's been beaten too long. "Your Majesty," he murmurs. But her eyes, half open, unfocused, don't blink. They say she hasn't spoken clearly in days. But sometimes just before dawn, she mutters something. A phrase. A single sentence nobody understands. "No more beds, no more beds." What does that mean? We'll get to that. Trust me. Right now, look at her legs. The veins are swollen, thick blue ropes snaking up her calves. The swelling has pushed the skin so tight it looks ready to split. Every second standing is torture. Every moment upright is a rebellion against her own biology. And yet, she does not fall. This is not strength. This is not dignity. This is a woman fighting something we cannot see, something heavier than her own body, something older than her crown, something buried deep inside her long before she became queen. They say the human body collapses within 72 hours without sleep. They say joints fail, blood pools, muscles lock. So how is she still upright after 17 days? And that, right there, is the secret no one will talk about. But to understand why this queen refuses the bed, why she fights gravity like an enemy, why she whispers those 5 strange words, "No more beds, no more beds," we have to go back, far back, before the crown, before the sickness, before the ghosts that followed her into this room. Because nothing about this moment makes sense until you see where it started. But to understand why she's still standing, why she whispers "no more beds," why her body refuses rest even as it breaks, we need to go back. Picture this, 1536. A little girl, not even 3 years old, standing barefoot on cold stone. Her breath fogs in the winter air. Her feet ache, and she doesn't dare sit. Because sitting means weakness. Sitting means punishment. Sitting means you're no longer useful. This little girl isn't Queen Anne yet. She's not even Princess Anne in any meaningful sense. She's just a small, trembling child watching the world fall apart, literally around her. The halls of the palace whisper her mother's name. Annie Hyde, sick, exhausted, bedridden. And here's what they don't tell you in history class. For months, little Anne watched attendants carry her mother's still, heavy body from bed to bed. Different rooms, different angles, different positions. Always the same result. Groans, coughs, the smell of infection, and the slow, terrifying realization. Beds meant death. Because every time a new bed arrived, her mother got worse. Letters from the period, yes, we have them, speak of the lady confined to her mattress, unable to rise from her place of suffering. And when she passed, the record says something chilling. She never rose again from the bed that claimed her. Primary source, Household Report, 1671. Little Anne learned that sentence by heart. Stay with me. Watch her memory unfold. She's 3 years old when she watches grown men struggle to lift her mother's body. She smells the lavender sachets they use to hide the odor of sickness. She hears her father, James, whisper something like prayer, but it comes out broken, unsure. She sees the white sheets, the sagging mattress, the stillness, and she decides, in the only way a child can decide, that beds are not places of rest. They are traps, places you don't leave, places you don't survive. Here's what's interesting. That fear never leaves her. Jump ahead. Age 6. Anne is struck with a burning fever. Her nurses lay her on a bed stuffed with goose feathers to cool her. She screams, fights, claws at the sheets. A letter from her governess describes it. The child violently rejects the bed and begs to be walked upright lest she succumb as her mother did. What does that do to a person? When your earliest memories tell you that lying down is a death sentence? Jump again. Age 11. Another fever. Another bed. This time she breaks wooden slats trying to push herself up. Her nurse writes, she would sooner faint on her feet than yield to the lying position. A pattern is beginning. But here's the part nobody talks about. The part buried under royal propaganda. Anne's childhood wasn't filled with dolls, tutors, and royal games. It was filled with loss, sickness, and the constant sound of bodies being moved from bed to grave. Her sister Mary, her wet nurse, 2 cousins, all taken to their beds, all dead within weeks. Imagine being a child in a palace where every whispered sentence begins with, have they put her to bed? Is he confined to his bed? She cannot rise from her bed. Beds become coffins long before bodies are cold. And here's the thing, the palace never corrected her. No one explained germs. No one explained medicine. No one had answers. So Anne grew up believing something deeply, painfully simple. People die when they lie down. Now fast forward, age 27. Her own infant son dies in his crib, in his bed. Record states, the child was found without breath in his resting place. Another connection, another wound. And each of these memories, each of these deaths creates a knot in her mind, a knot that will tighten for decades until it snaps the moment she becomes queen. Remember this. Remember the child who watched her mother die lying down, the girl who associated mattresses with mourning, the young woman who lost her baby in a cradle. This is the foundation. This is the origin. This is why, in that final week of her life, as physicians begged her to lie down, she refused. Not out of pride, not out of stubbornness, but because lying down meant surrendering to the same fate she watched claim every person she ever loved. And that belief, that terror, would shape everything that came next. Picture this. Anne is older now, crown heavy, back stiff, eyes tired in a way sleep never fixes, because sleep was never an option. We move through her life like a staircase built from pain. When she became a young wife, she learned to endure. Her marriage to Prince George wasn't cruel, but it was lonely. She miscarried again and again and again. 17 pregnancies, 0 surviving children. Let that number sink in. And here's what they don't tell you. Every single time, the same phrase appeared in the royal medical reports. Her Majesty was confined to her bed for the duration of the loss. Beds, again. Beds swallowing another life. Beds ending another hope. She started avoiding them. Servants noted her pacing, leaning against door frames, sleeping upright in chairs until her neck cramped so violently she couldn't turn her head for days. Here's what's interesting. There are at least 4 separate letters from attendants describing her refusing to lie down, even when she was too weak to stand. One writes, when urged to rest, she declared she had no wish to be placed where so many of her babes had died. Now imagine the psychological toll. Imagine standing at the foot of a bed that should represent peace, but instead represents every dead child you've ever carried. Beds were not furniture to Queen Anne. Beds were grave markers. Now watch the escalation. 1694. Her sister Mary, the person she was closest to, falls ill. The report says, the Queen was taken to her bed, where she remained until her final breath. And once again, Anne sees the pattern. Another bed, another death. By 1702, when Anne becomes queen, her body's already breaking. Rheumatism, obesity, gout so severe that her joints swell to 6 inches beyond their normal shape. Every doctor says the same thing. You must rest in bed, but she refuses. Again and again, standing through pain that would cripple anyone else. And here's the ironic tragedy. The very thing she believed would kill her, lying down, was the one thing she needed most. Her refusal became ritual, a superstition hardened into survival, a childhood fear calcified into royal protocol. Picture this. Anne collapses in council. Her knees buckle. Her face drains of color. Ministers rush forward. She waves them off. Do not put me down. Her voice is weak, but her eyes, sharp, terrified. She clings to a table, breathing like someone fighting drowning. A minister writes, Her Majesty remained upright, though her countenance was near insensible. None dared lay her upon a bed. This is the point where the psychological becomes physical. Standing becomes her shield, her prison, her punishment. Her body pays the price. The swelling worsens. Her ankles turn black with pooled blood. Her veins throb painfully under the pressure. Her spine compresses. Doctors estimate nearly 2 inches lost in height. She begins to shuffle instead of walk. Every step is agony. But every bed is a threat, and every loss reinforces the same lesson. Stand if you want to live. Stand if you want to survive. Stand if you want to fight the fate that has taken everyone else. Now picture her in her final months. Her joints are so inflamed that her fingers bend sideways. Her legs tremble constantly. Her breath rattles. Her chest heaves as if every inhale is a negotiation. And still, she refuses a bed. Why, you ask? Because her mother died lying down. Her babies died lying down. Her sister died lying down. Her closest friends died lying down. This is grief turned into superstition. Superstition turned into ritual. Ritual turned into doctrine. And doctrine turned into the last days of a queen who believed the only way to escape death was to stay on her feet. But here's where the story twists. Because in those final 17 days, something new happened. Something different. Something darker. She wasn't just avoiding a bed. She was afraid of something under it. A fear recorded only once, in a letter still kept hidden in a private archive. Her Majesty believes that something waits beneath the resting place. She says, if I lie down, it will claim me as it has claimed the others. Something beneath. We're getting close. Closer to the part they tried to bury. Closer to the moment the palace panicked. Closer to the truth discovered the night she finally died. Picture this. We're back in the room. Back in the air that smells like cold sweat, burnt tallow, and fear. Back in the moment her body finally begins to fail. It's the night of August 1st, 1714, the final night. The final hours. The final terrible proof of everything she believed. Remember this scene. Everything we've talked about was leading here. Anne is still on her feet. Barely. Her knees buckle. Her breath rattles like stones in a wooden box. Her fingers twitch. Her eyes flutter. A physician steps forward with trembling hands. We must move her, he whispers. If we don't, but then he stops. Because she speaks. Clear, sharp, like a knife dragged across ice. Do not put me down. The room freezes. And this is where it becomes disturbing, terrifying, visceral. Because her body has finally reached its limit, muscles tearing, veins bursting, fluid pooling painfully under the skin. The queen is dying, on her feet. A sound escapes her throat, half gasp, half groan. Her body sags for a moment, weight dropping like a stone. A lady-in-waiting catches her arm, horrified. Your Majesty, please rest. But Anne's eyes snap open again, wild, terrified. Not the bed, she whispers. Not there, not again. What is there, Your Majesty? A minister asks. She doesn't answer, just stares at the mattress across the room. Stares like something is crawling beneath it. Something only she can see. And then, her legs give out completely. Her body collapses forward, but does not fall. Not all the way. Her ladies catch her, support her, hold her weight. She's half standing, half hanging, her full body trembling. Lay her down, one physician orders, finally panicking. No, she screams, louder than she's spoken in weeks. Her voice cracks the silence like a whip. Her entire body convulses. Not the bed, she repeats. That's the rate. There is something beneath. Waiting, this is the moment. The one the palace buried. The one that never made the official records. But we have one surviving testimony. A private letter written by a terrified servant, smuggled out of Kensington and preserved in a family archive for 3 centuries. It says, Her Majesty would not be lowered to the mattress. She cried that the beds had claimed her children. She cried that they would claim her too. She declared there was weight beneath the bed that rose when one lay upon it, and she would not be taken as the others were. Weight beneath. Think about that phrase. What did she mean? A curse. A presence? A childhood memory twisted by grief? Hold that thought. Because her body finally slackens. Her breath becomes shallow. Her pulse weak. A doctor whispers, if we do not lower her, she will die standing. And another answers, she believes lying down means death, and standing means life. Let her stand. Whether out of respect or fear, no one moves her. Minutes pass, heavy, slow, agonizing. And then, she is gone, still upright, still refusing a bed, still confronting an invisible terror embedded deep in her childhood. But this is not the end, because the true horror begins after she dies. 6 attendants are called to move the queen's body. They try to lift her gently, but her limbs will not bend. Her legs are locked, her spine rigid, her muscles frozen in the position she died in. One witness described it like trying to bend a wooden statue. They attempt to shift her arms, but the joints crack like dried branches. Her shoulders resist movement. Her knees refuse to fold. She has literally died standing, and her body refuses to surrender the position. They must carry her upright. 2 men at her shoulders, 2 at her arms, 2 at her legs. The record says, Her Majesty's posture could not be eased. We bore her thus to the adjoining chamber. Now comes the part the palace destroyed. The autopsy. It was performed only once. Late at night, behind locked doors, with no witnesses except 2 physicians. Most records vanished, burned, suppressed. But one partial description remains in a foreign archive, an unsigned sheet translated centuries later. It says, her body shows signs of great compression. The joints did stiffen in peculiar fashion. The veins of the lower limbs were burst. The lungs showed marks of prolonged strain. And beneath the ribs. It cuts off there. Beneath the ribs. What? What did they find? What was so disturbing it couldn't be written? We're not done, because the cover-up that followed is worse than the truth itself. Picture the palace the morning after. Fog clings to the gardens. Candles burn low. Everyone walks softly like sound itself might break something. The queen is dead, but no one is mourning. They're terrified because the way she died, still upright, limbs locked, veins burst, ribs strained, is something no royal physician wants to explain. Something no minister once whispered. Something no foreign ambassador must ever hear. So the cover-up begins. Quietly, efficiently, ruthlessly. Let's go inside the chamber where her body lies. She's been moved, awkwardly, painfully, into a side room. She's still upright, propped gently against a carved wooden panel. Her head slumps sideways, but her body? Rigid, inflexible, unyielding. A physician stands over her, wiping sweat from his brow. He mutters, "This posture, it is unnatural." Another snaps, "Then make it natural. Break what must be broken." You can feel the tension, the fear, the dread. But before they touch her, the door slams open. A minister enters, pale, shaking. "The king in waiting has given orders," he says. "There will be no mention of her posture. No mention of the 17 days. No mention of anything unusual." "Unusual," one doctor whispers. "Her body is frozen upright, sir. Shall we pretend this is typical?" Yes. A single word. A command. A death sentence for the truth. And here's where it gets darker. The autopsy, already performed in secret hours earlier, is declared invalid. No notes are kept. No signatures. The partial sheet that mentioned beneath the ribs vanished. Burned. Buried. No one ever admits to seeing it. A servant later writes, "We were instructed to speak of a peaceful passing, and those who questioned the matter were dismissed or removed." Removed can mean many things. We'll get to that. Stay with me, because now the body must be prepared for burial. 6 attendants attempt to bend her again. The bones crack. The skin splits slightly at the knees. A doctor hisses, "Stop. No more. We cannot break a queen." "So what do we do?" another asks. The minister answers, "We bind the limbs. We heat the joints. We force the posture into something respectable." The attendants hesitate. Everyone knows this is sacrilege, manipulating a royal corpse. But orders are orders. They wrap cloth around her legs. They press warm compresses to the joints. They try to soften the stiffness. It doesn't work. Her body remains rigid, like the death pose itself is holding her hostage. So they resort to the unthinkable. A witness account, hidden in a Scottish archive, reveals, "Her Majesty's legs were bound with such pressure that the compression was visible even after the garments were applied. Bound, forced, crushed into shape. When they finally lay her in the coffin, she is half seated, half reclining, a strange angle chosen simply because the body would not lie flat." The royal engraver noted, "Her posture was most peculiar, and for writing that single sentence, he was removed from service." Now let's talk about the people who ask questions. The lady in waiting who wrote the first letter describing the queen's final scream, dismissed within a week. The servant who recorded the phrase "beneath the bed," dead within 3 months, a fall, they said. The physician who kept a duplicate of the autopsy notes, his home burned mysteriously. He survived, but the notes did no. For 400 years, every request to re-examine the official records of Queen Anne's death has been denied. Every medical report sealed. Every private correspondence withheld. Every unusual detail scrubbed from textbooks. Because here's what the palace feared most. Not the rigid posture. Not the 17 days. Not the locked joints or crushed veins. No. The one thing they couldn't allow the world to hear. Why was what she said in her last hour. "It waits beneath." A phrase so disturbing, so psychologically loaded, so impossible to explain, that they destroyed everything connected to it. They didn't cover up her death. They covered up her fear. Picture the room one last time. The fog is lifted. The candles burn to stubs. The queen's body, altered, arranged, muted, lies in the coffin the world expects. Outside, London breathes again, as if the city had been holding its own lungs hostage for 17 days. But inside Kensington, something lingers. Something heavy. Something unsaid. Let's stand in that silence together. A servant sweeps the hallway. Dust shifts. Floorboards creak. For a moment, she swears she hears something. A soft thump beneath the floor. But she keeps sweeping. No one wants to imagine what might be below a bed or below the earth. Because this is where the story stops being history and becomes something closer to a haunting. The official records say Queen Anne died of a long-standing illness. The textbooks say she passed peacefully. The monuments say she expired in dignity, but none of those things match the room we stood in. None match her rigid body, her locked joints, her final scream, her final warning. It waits beneath. Why did she say that? What did she mean? Was it literal? Metaphorical? Delusion? Prophecy? Memory? Let's rewind the pieces we've collected. A child watching her mother die lying down. A girl terrified of beds. A princess surrounded by death, loss, and quiet weeping in linen sheets. A woman who carried 17 children but buried 17 cradles. A queen who believed gravity itself was a predator. Every trauma she ever lived was tied to the same position, horizontal. Every death she witnessed was accompanied by the same word, bed. What if her mind turned that grief into something with shape, something with weight, something that lived beneath because that's where her deepest memories slept? What if beneath the bed wasn't supernatural, but psychological, a terror formed in childhood that grew claws in adulthood? Or what if it was something else, something darker, something the palace recognized instantly but never spoke aloud? Because here's what's interesting. After she died, her bed was removed quietly, not burned, not stored, not passed on to another royal. It was buried, not sold, buried. The only royal mattress ever documented as being lowered into the earth. Why bury a bed? To hide a stain? To honor a queen's fear? To silence a symbol? To bury whatever weight she believed lived beneath it? We'll never know. Because the pit where the bed was placed has no marker, no record, no map. Just a line in an old groundskeeper's notebook that says, "The object was lowered deep, and the earth trembled as the ropes were cut." Earth trembled. That's a strange choice of words, isn't it? Let that sit with you. Now imagine this. You're walking through Kensington Gardens at dusk. The wind moves softly through the trees. Birdsong fades. Shadows lengthen. You pass a patch of earth that looks no different from any other. Grass, soil, roots. But beneath it, 6 feet down, is a bed that held a queen who died standing. A bed she refused, feared, fought. A bed that may still carry the echo of her final whisper. No more beds. It waits beneath. Some stories don't end. They just settle, sink, sleep under the ground, waiting for someone curious enough to dig them up again. And some truths, especially royal truths, are kept silent not because they're dangerous, but because they're too human. Because they expose a queen not as a symbol, but as a frightened child still trapped in the first death she ever witnessed. Maybe that's the real haunting. Not a demon, not a curse, not a presence beneath the bed. Maybe the thing waiting beneath was her own past, her own grief, her own ghosts. And maybe that's why she refused to lie down. Because lying down meant sinking back into everything she spent a lifetime running from. Picture her again for the last time, rigid, trembling, staring at a bed she will not touch. A queen who fought gravity, fought sleep, fought fate. A queen who died on her feet. Some fears are too old to unlearn. Some wounds too deep to close. Some stories too heavy to bury. And some ghosts, especially the ones we carry from childhood, never lie down. If you made it this far, you already know. This wasn't the story of how a queen died. It was the story of why she refused to rest. And the truth she whispered with her final breath still hangs in the air like a warning. It waits beneath, and maybe it still does.